Welcome to the Impactful Engineer Project. I'm Steve Maxey, and with my co-host and brother Jake, we are here to bring you guidance, fresh ideas, and the tools to help you become an impactful engineer. Welcome to the Impactful Engineer. Our mission is to help you grow your engineering career and inspire you to pursue your full potential as not only an engineering professional, but as a member of your greater community. I'm Steve Maxey, and I'm a mechanical engineering manager in new product development. And I'm here with my brother Jake, who owns and operates NLS Engineering, an electrical engineering partner in the AEC industry.
How's it going, Steven?
How's it going?
Pretty good. All right. Quick housekeeping here. We use a few formats on the show. 3 to be exact. The first most typical episode is going to be Steve and I on just talking back and forth about something we think is important to your career, give you some tips and tricks. You know, you can take a few things away and implement them immediately that we've seen in our careers that have really helped us. So the second type of episode is like a solo. Either Steve or I will be on here, maybe 10 minutes, and we just kind of lay out what we're thinking for the day. And it's something that's impactful. It's usually a mindset thing. Just to get you thinking. And then about once a month, we have a guest interview show. They're about 60 minutes long. We meet a lot of great people in this space, and a lot of them have amazing experiences, things that they can bring to the table that will help many young and aspiring engineers. So about once a month, we'll bring a guest on. That's the type of episode we are doing today. So we'll bring you some incredible insight into, things that will help you with your mindset and integrate into your career some skills that you may not be thinking about all the time as you're head down producing and doing your job to the best of your ability. So we'll invite you to kind of bring your head up out of the work, maybe think about a few things, and give you some skills to work on that will be highly impactful for you. So today, and we don't typically do some huge intro for our guests. We let them speak and we let them tell us what they want us to hear about what they have going on. So Aaron Moncur, welcome to the show, and just tell us a little bit about who you are.
Thank you, guys. Happy to be here. And I want to thank both of you for not only inviting me to be on your wonderful show, but also for producing this terrific content for engineers out there. I think that engineers are the unsung heroes of the world, and I love that we get to be a part of creating information that helps them be even greater superheroes out there. So thank you for creating this show. A little bit about me. Let's see, I'll do just a little personal and then go into professional. I grew up in Hawaii, born and raised on the east side of Oahu, a town called Kaneohe. And surfing was my great love back home. It still is, but unfortunately, living in Phoenix, there aren't too many opportunities to surf. Although they did just open a surf park in Mesa, where I live, which is pretty cool. So I've been an engineer for over 20 years now. I graduated in 2004 with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, and then I did a master's in bioengineering, and worked for a small local company doing engineering service for 3 or 4 years right out of grad school. And then the recession hit, I got laid off, and I decided to start my own thing. And it was totally fake it till you make it back then. I had like 3 or 4 years experience, which isn't nothing, but also isn't, I wasn't a seasoned veteran at that point. So there was a lot of fake it till you make it and a lot of lessons learned. But I've been doing my own thing, pipeline now for 15 years, and we've grown a small team of our own now. We've got about a dozen people here on the team, and our focus is developing automated machines and custom test fixtures. Bespoke manufacturing equipment is really what it comes down to. So that's a little bit about me.
That's amazing. I wish I wish I would have gotten laid off because I've wanted to own my own company for so long. I mean, it's been like a 10 plus year dream. And you having the guts to just step out and do it after you got laid off. Like most people will be like, oh, I need to find the security immediately and get back on track,
Honestly, I think this is the only way it would have happened, because I don't think I would have had the guts to go out on my own, to quit, a stable job and try this. So I often think back to that time, even though it was painful. And I mean, my wife and I had just had our first kid, and we'd moved into a house. We got a mortgage, right? So I'm like, oh, how am I going to feed the family and pay the mortgage?
More so, yeah.
Feeling
Jeez.
awful about myself as the sole provider here, who is no longer providing. But it was genuinely one of the best things that ever happened to me. And it forced me to, go out of my comfort zone a little bit and start something that has been one of the greatest blessings in my life. So it sounds weird to say, but I am very deeply grateful for being laid off 15 years ago.
Yeah. And give yourself a little more credit. That takes a huge amount of guts. Like, I'm sitting here with a comfy job, with expenses saved up, with plan B really being, I just go back to work, because people need electrical engineers, and I could have a job in no time. So I have this nice cushy plan B. So give yourself a little more credit. I'm walking away with a nice cushion. You know what I mean?
I do think something that made it a little more palatable was the fact that I already had a few side gigs back then. And maybe this is one of the reasons that I was a bit disengaged at my full-time job and ended up being one of the people who got laid off. But I was doing photography and web design just on the side, side hustles. And I had a little bit of income coming from those things. Not a ton, but a little bit, which did make it a little easier. I wasn't totally starting from scratch when it came to income, right? I had a little bit there, and then luckily I found some engineering opportunities pretty quickly, and eventually those overtook photography and web design, and I just went full in on engineering.
How long did it take you to get to the point where you replaced your original salary with your new venture?
It was pretty quick. Luckily, I remember I was making about just under 65 grand, I think, a year back then. This is 2009, so 15, 16 years ago. And I remember thinking to myself, man, if I can hit 60K in my first year, I'll be happy, right? With engineering. And then there was a little bit more coming from web design and photography. But the first year I did 90K. And so, from year one, I was profitable and financially healthy, which was awesome. And I remember having to do, I really did have to go out of my comfort zone. I was an engineer, not a salesperson, but I had to do some sales, right? And I remember spending weeks just cold calling companies, scouring the internet for lists of product companies and just calling them up and saying, hey, this is me, this is what I'm doing, and I think I could help you. Do you have any work that I could do for you? And was fortunate to find a few early on that did have some work for me. But it was just a hustle and a grind to find those people. And then once I did, one thing kind of led to another and snowballed from there.
Yeah, just kind of interested because I've done contract work quite a while ago when I actually lived in Arizona. Did you do more of an hourly based type thing, or did you do like a per job?
Yeah, it was almost all time and materials back then.
Okay.
And I think, oh man, I was working for peanuts. The first job that I did, I think I charged $35 an hour.
Oh man.
Yeah, right.
Oh wow.
And I was probably working 60+ hour weeks in the beginning, which is funny because at my full-time job before that, I mentioned being disengaged. This was the word that my boss used when he told me that I was getting laid off. He said, "Hey, we can tell that you're disengaged here," and they weren't wrong. I remember when Friday rolled around at the full-time job, if I already had 40 hours clocked by 3 p.m. on Friday, I was out. I was like, "See you guys. I'm done for the week." So I was looking for opportunities to just put in the bare minimum and get out. And then when I started my own thing, Pipeline, I was putting in 60+ hour weeks. And the interesting part was I loved it. I was not looking to do the minimum for sure. I was way more engaged. I mean, I was 100% all in, and I loved doing it because this time it was for me, not for someone else.
Yeah. It's a lot more fulfilling.
Yeah.
A lot more purpose behind that.
There's another one to add that you kind of made me think of, Aaron, to the list of, hey, why are you starting your own company? And that's like, I'd be doing a disservice for the company I'm working for now because I can feel it. I'm slowly starting to become disengaged, bored, frustrated with processes, all these things, all the stuff that's like typical of someone that's entrepreneurial and is hungry and needs to be doing a ton of stuff and whatever. So it's like, yeah, hey, add that to the bucket of reasons why.
Hey, my fellow impactful engineers. If there's one thing that you could do to help out this community, it's to keep listening to the podcast, but also if you found value in it, to share it with one person, give us a 5-star review, or even leave a text review. It'll only take a few seconds of your time. Find that person that you think could enjoy some of this or learn from it, and pass on the good word. Now back to the show.
I can definitely relate to that. I remember towards the end of my time at this company, I had this manager who, I'll say he kind of micromanaged me, but I can't really put that on him. He probably micromanaged me because I was putting in the minimum and like he wanted to get as much out of me as he could. So no fault to him. Towards the end of my time there, this is after they had told me that I was probably going to get laid off. They gave me this 2-month probationary time, said, hey, we need to let some people go. You might be one of them. We're going to give you 2 months. Show us that you can turn around and, really become much more engaged and maybe we'll keep you. We can't promise because, economic downturn, all this stuff, but we'll give you 2 months and show us what you can do. And during those 2 months, I was loaned to another manager who had a small project, couple weeks, right? And this other manager was awesome. He just told me what needed to be done and then let me go and kind of take it however I wanted to do it. And I crushed it. I did so good on that project. And I remember the owners of this company being bewildered. They did not understand how this could happen, where I went from really not being very engaged and just kind of putting in the minimum. My heart wasn't in it, to just crushing this other project from a different manager. And to be honest, I didn't understand it myself at the time. But, looking back, I now see that I really thrive when I have a lot of autonomy, right, to kind of do my own thing. And when I have that autonomy and a clear vision, I'm exceptionally productive. And when I have to just do what people tell me to do, it crushes my spirit. This is one of the reasons I did not love school, right? I had to be in a certain seat at a certain time
Yes.
doing what someone told me to do. And it wasn't for me. I didn't love it. I got through it, but I did not like it.
Yeah, I feel the crushing the soul.
Yeah, well, that might be time for a change.
That's right. One of the things that we kind of talked about in our kind of, pre-discussion was, and I think it's super important, which is energy management for engineers. So you had talked about these things that, hey, this really drains my energy, right? And I don't know if it was during your first job, or if it's, if you still notice things now about, hey, I should probably pay attention to what really sucks the life out of me, because then I can manage that. I can reduce the timing. Tell us a little bit about, when did you first notice this like energy drain, or like, hey, this really takes it out of me? And then maybe what you kind of did to maybe improve that, or look a little further into how you manage your energy.
Yeah, this came from a coach that I worked with and actually still work with. And he proposed this concept of energy to me. What gives you energy and what takes energy from you? And I think there are two categories. One is people, and the other is activities. And being a business owner, I deal with people a lot, right? In fact, that's primarily what I do these days, is not so much the engineering, but just dealing with people, whether that's sales or like HR issues or, whatever, that kind of thing. There have been a few engineers I've worked with over the years. I, of course, won't name names here, but a few engineers I've worked with over the years that every time I was around them, they just sucked my energy out of me. We weren't able to communicate. I understood the individual words coming out of their mouths, but stringing them all together, whatever they were trying to say did not make sense to me. I really enjoy when people can be concise and just tell me what needs to be said, and then we move on to the next thing. And verbose individuals, which is why I don't love speaking with salespeople very often. Actually, good salespeople are not verbose, but most salespeople are verbose. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I realized pretty quickly that there was a certain personality that would really just suck my energy, and have tried to avoid those people over time. And then the other thing is activities. And back when I was working at this company, in the beginning, I was very engaged and I was doing things that were fun for me, right? They were like CAD design and prototyping and going out to the shop and using the mill and the lathe and building things and putting assemblies together. These were really fun activities for me. They gave me energy. And then towards the end of my time there, and this was mostly due to just the economic climate at the time, there just wasn't much of that kind of work to do. The work that they did have was like paperwork. It was documentation, right? Creating drawings, writing SOPs, that sort of thing. And that definitely, it drained me. It was not fun, which is why I became disengaged. So over the years, I've kind of learned what gives me energy and what takes energy. And I think one of the most powerful things that people can do is to create a list, not just for this topic of energy, but over time, learn what works for you and what doesn't, and create a list, because our brains are not, at least mine, is not the best at like remembering things long term. I've got so much stuff cluttering my brain right now that it's hard for me to recall specific things. So I write things down in lists. I have all kinds of lists, lists of future business ideas, people I need to talk to, general tasks, things that give me energy, things that drain my energy. So I think creating a list like that is really powerful. And for me anyway, I usually just can't sit down and write the full list all at once. It's always a living document. So over years, I've built these lists, and they just get better and better over time.
I like to circle back on the relationships and people side of energy drain, specifically for newer engineers, young aspiring engineers, because they may not be in a position to not work with certain people. Yeah. They may be part of a larger team that has some people that boost their energy and some people who completely drain it. So what would your advice be to those types of engineers who are in those situations to help manage their energy levels with various team members?
Well, like you said, there might not be many options in the work environment. A young engineer might not have too many knobs that he or she can turn within the work environment. But, you go home at the end of the day and you still got 5-6 hours of free time to do whatever you want. And I know for myself, when the situation in one aspect of my life has just, for whatever reason, been such that I couldn't really control things and I just had to push through it, I would get my energy from spending my personal time doing fun things that I felt were fun anyway. For example, video editing I've taken up recently, and I think that's a lot of fun. And I've gone out and done some just personal projects. Some were work related, but they weren't commissioned by a customer. I just thought it would be fun to go create this little mini documentary about the machine shop down the road. So I'm going to call this owner up and see if he'll have me. And he was excited. And I went there and I filmed something, and I did the video editing and strung it all together. And it was this delightful little story of a family-run business and how they've evolved over the years. And his father was a machinist and his grandfather was a machinist. And a week after sharing that video out there, he got a new customer from it. And I was like, I was so jazzed about that, when something I did just for fun resulted in a truly meaningful outcome for someone else. So yes, you might be limited in what you can do within a certain context. For example, at work, like we're talking about right now, if you're a younger engineer, you don't have too many options. But after work or before work, you have free time and you can find things that are going to give you energy. And I think that's one good solution for it.
Yeah. So I guess the focus would be to, in the moment, you might be draining your battery a bit.
Yeah.
But as soon as that time is over, just completely stop that drain and then refocus into something that's recharging.
Exactly. Hopefully you're not being forced to work 60, 70-hour weeks where you truly don't have any free time. And if you are, maybe it's time to consider the nuclear option of leaving that environment and finding somewhere that's more suitable.
You just might have to change the environment. Yeah. One, you should see my lists, Aaron. Back to the list thing. I've got lists on lists everywhere. I've got a list that tells me to look at the lists. So
you're a list pro when you get to that point. I get
the list thing. Yeah. It's figuring out to remember to look at the lists. It takes some skill. And you kind of hit on it. It was like, you may not have a lot of time to strategically rebuild your energy and gain it back, but you should try nonetheless. Like, you should be turning those knobs and those dials nonetheless, even if you can only turn them just a 1/16 of an inch. You've got to be able to find ways to integrate this stuff into your life to get your energy back. And tactically, as a young engineer that's new, if you're head down, you're producing all the time, and yes, welcome to life, welcome to being an employee, welcome to business, welcome to everything about being a human. Sometimes you got to do things you don't like to do, and sometimes you got to do them for a long time. But it doesn't mean that you can't amplify your efforts to regain some of that energy so that you can pour it into that either boring or non-engaging work that is very important. So I think that's awesome. The before work, the after work, really think about what you're going to do. And if you have a day full of meetings and meetings drain you, then that's the day that you plan, like the arcade trip after work, bowling with your kids, whatever's like fun to you. You're like, all right, hey, Wednesdays have become this recurring meeting nightmare hell for dad. I'm implementing, go to the movies Wednesdays, like every week, or go bowling, or whatever's fun, right?
Yeah, well said.
Purposely put these things in, and it kind of leads like perfectly into our next segue, because to do that, you kind of have to know thyself, right? You have to kind of know what drives you, and you figure you would, but there's a lot of reflection that you can do to figure out that, hey, maybe I don't know myself so great. And engineers typically shy away from this kind of stuff. I don't know the last time I heard at work a senior giving advice to a younger engineer saying, hey, you should really know yourself and reflect.
But unless they're in HR for some reason.
Yeah, something, unless there's some outside consultant or a coach or something. But it's really important. So I bring stuff up like that all the time, and I kind of get the deer in the headlights kind of look, and I go, let me explain. And I promise you. But there's this idea of reflection as growth. And I know, Aaron, you had a guest recently on your show that talked a lot about this, and I've had him on the show, and he's very good at it, but he makes a very good point about self-reflection. And so that's the next thing I want to dive into is like, and we can get tactical too. I know engineers just want to know, hey, what do I do? Can I try something for 10 minutes?
Yeah, give me a process. Step 1 through 5. Right. Yeah. I think this goes back to purpose, understanding your why. We'll go back to what Steve said for just a moment about what do you do if you're a young engineer and you can't change things and you just have to grin and bear through it. I think if you have a strong enough purpose, that also gives you energy to get through the tough times, right? Really understanding why you're doing your job, what's the purpose behind it, and aligning your actions with that purpose. So as far as knowing yourself, I think that's one of the big things is understand what your purpose is at work, personally as well in life. And then the guest you mentioned, Jake, was another Jake Kennington. Shout out to Jake. I think he's just a really smart, insightful guy. And in fact, he's going to be a speaker at our upcoming PDX event in October. Really excited about his talk there. But one of the things he said on my podcast was that we don't grow from experience, we grow from reflecting on experience. And I thought that was a really powerful statement. And so I've journaled off and on over the years, but honestly, my journaling was never super deep. It was more like, this is what I did today. And, maybe 5 years I'll read this and think, oh, that was interesting. I did that thing 5 years ago, but it was never very profound or meaningful for me. And so when I heard Jake say, we learn from reflecting on experience, I thought, I'm going to start journaling again. And I'm going to reflect on it. I'm not just going to write things down. I'm going to think about it. And that's been really kind of astoundingly powerful for me, just in terms of helping me get to know myself better. And a hack that I've used to further amplify that impact is using AI. And so I've created a project within ChatGPT, and this project is called what is it called? Life and Wellness or Health and Wellness, something like that. And its primary function, which I've spoken language coded into it, is to like basically be a sounding board for me to help me improve in life. Be a therapist, be a coach, be a psychiatrist, be whatever I need it to be. And I've done all my journaling in there, so it gets to know me really well. It feels a little awkward sometimes because I'm sharing like very personal, intimate details of my life with this AI, things that I probably wouldn't say to anyone else because I just feel too, I don't know, claustrophobic about it. But I'll share it with this project in ChatGPT, and the questions and insights that it has come back with have actually been really surprisingly astute. So that's one thing that I've done to grow from reflecting on experience and then just supercharged it with AI.
On finding purpose, how would you recommend a younger engineer to find it within the realm of the company they're working for? Is it just taking the mission statement of the company and saying, oh, that's the purpose while I'm here, or is there something a little more deeper than that?
Great question. I think it takes a lot of time. It took me years to understand my mission, my purpose, and it's still evolving to this point. So I think it's something that grows, and it's a living idea. But I think journaling is actually one thing that helps a lot. An exercise I did a long time ago, I was part of a coaching group called Strategic Coach, and they had this idea of a person's unique ability. And the unique ability is the crossover between what you are really good at doing and what you love doing. There are also things you're really good at doing, but maybe you don't like doing it very much. Mm-hmm. And also things that you're not very good at, but you love doing. And it's where those two cross over. You're really good at doing them, and you enjoy doing them. They call it your unique ability. And so they had us for a week just write down everything that we did during that week, everything, no matter how small. And then in the border of the page, we'd write down, was I good at this thing, and did I enjoy this thing? And even as short as a week, you start to see some patterns and trends, right? Engineers love data. This is a great way to create some data about yourself and then analyze it. And after a few weeks, you start to say, okay, these are the things that I really enjoyed doing and was good at. These are maybe hints at what my unique ability is. So that's I think a good tactical approach.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, you can plot it in XY axis, and everything on,
you can get
on
crazy
the top right quadrant is where I need to be. So
exactly. Yep, that's right.
For the engineers and the engineer in me, it's so, I love a tactical approach. Like when you say find your why, or like what your purpose is, that's a huge lifelong development, daunting task, right? And it's kind of ethereal, and it's like, how do we grab that and bring it to us? Right. And so I would recommend not doing that. Like, don't set down and the purpose of what you're doing is to figure out your why. You're going to hit a huge wall, which if you chip at for years and years, you're going to figure it out. But it's going to be all these little tiny tasks. And there's this whole idea about spending your effort at the right time on the right stuff. Right. And I think what you guys just talked about is very good to apply that. It's like, it's called the 80-20 rule. It's called doing all the right things instead of all of the things. You're prioritizing. It's a strategy. So just writing out all the things you did, just weeks, just write them down. What did I do? And then you're going to be reflecting back. It's like, why did all of these things came up? These were the ones that hit the most. I felt really good that week, or I felt really good that day, or man, I've been having fun at work lately. So then you can apply the action and what emotion followed. And then you can say, okay, there's got to be a correlation here. So then you're looking at the data, right? So you can break this down very systematically and just like, pragmatic approach to defining what goes in the bucket of your why. So then you'll start filling the bucket and you'll get there. Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah.
So it's not as touchy-feely for all the engineers out there who like data.
Correct.
Maybe we could say that analysis is the engineer's analog to reflection.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's steal that one, Steve.
Yeah,
Put
definitely.
it somewhere.
I would like to invite adding another axis. So if you have, your x-axis and your y-axis is, whether you're good at it and whether you enjoy it, I would say the z-axis could be how impactful is it to the business, or how impactful is it to making money or serving the customer, et cetera. And then you can dial it in even further. And because if you're making more impact with the thing that you love doing and you're good at, that's the sweet spot right there.
You found it. Yeah.
I think that's very, very insightful. Yeah, you've got a Venn diagram at that point, what you're good at, what you love doing, what you can make money doing.
Yep.
And this is a career podcast. So perfect. So Steve, I'll start off with you. If you find yourself and you've created this Venn diagram or whatever, this model, and what if everything's going great, but it doesn't align with the company, like at all? People around them, they don't see it as being valuable. Maybe it's not the next thing that'll get you promoted. You're having a great time, but your name's not coming up in hallway conversations. You're not on the list for the promotion. What would you do at that point?
First, I would evaluate if there's other items that I'm doing that I still like to do that have high impact. So, you're not just going to land on one thing. You're going to have a few things. And so you want to make sure you find the thing that's closest, that is in alignment with the organization that you're working with. But I think if you just have such a massive misalignment overall, like if you hate it, it has you believe that it's low impact, et cetera, I think that's when you need to reassess whether you need to find something else.
And Aaron, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Steve is spot on there. And it doesn't mean that you have to change right away, right?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I would maybe caution against doing so. I would create a plan and give yourself some time. I know back when I was doing photography and web design, those were the things that gave me energy, right? I'd go to work and it would kind of suck my energy. And then I'd come home and I'd do some photography and I'd do some web design. And those were really fun for me. So I had built up this buffer over time with my side hustles. And I think that whether it's a side hustle or just planning for your next career move, give yourself whatever it is, 6 months, a year, and plan it out. Start talking to the right people, building the right relationships, and then when all your ducks are in a row, great, go ahead and make your move.
Yeah, and I'll just go out into outer space here. What if you could? So say you love the company, the things that you figured out you love doing aren't quite a fit at that time. Could you possibly build your own path within that company? It's a longer term strategy, but I've seen evidence of many people taking what they love to do and saying, where could we point this energy that is beneficial to the company, but that we're not doing right now, right? And that's a little harder. There's things you got to do and how you approach it, and that'll be a long road, but if it's worth it to you, that's another possibility. I would say, hey, make your own position.
Kind of the intrapreneur path, right?
Yes. Yeah. Something I talked about and considered doing for a while, but then determined that that wasn't where I wanted to go. Like the output for what I was going to input was not what I wanted to see. And so I decided something else.
I think in addition to that is, we said put down a list of all the things that you currently do. What if there's something that you haven't done yet and you may be good at and you might end up enjoying it? So I would even say try new things within that organization if you really love the organization. And you may find something that you are really good at and you really enjoy doing. And then now you find your purpose within the organization.
Yeah, and take it to your manager, take it to your supervisor, just say, hey, I think that this thing would be really valuable for the company. And by the way, I think I'd be good at doing that. And maybe you have to spend some of your own time doing it even. In fact, I remember towards the end of when I was working full time for this other company, there was they were general engineering services, but they had a particular expertise in medical device development. But we didn't have much on the website about that. There's some generic verbiage, but it was mostly just general engineering services. And so I thought we should have a website specifically for the medical device development side of things. And I just did it. I created a website. I already had the skill set, so I just created a website. And then I showed it to my boss, and he was like, "Wow, this is awesome! I love it. Yeah, let's publish this live." So they did under the company's brand. And a few weeks later, we got a hit on that website. It was a new lead that came in through this website, and I was so jazzed about that. Right?
That is awesome.
So just finding things that are going to be useful for the company and pitching it. And maybe you don't even pitch it. Maybe, there's a saying, easier to ask for forgiveness than permission sometimes. Just do it. Yep. And then once you have something worth showing, share it to the stakeholders.
Yeah. I want to break down some of the stuff there, though, just for the listeners. It's so that the asking for forgiveness, sometimes you just do it. If you're going to, there's a trap that you can get into that if you feel really excited about something and you think you want to take on this project and it's worth it to you to spend a little time outside of work to get it done, you can get yourself entangled into management and red tape and all these things. So just be careful of that. If you have a manager that you really trust and you can say, "Hey, we've been talking for a while," or maybe it's in your one-on-one and you've gained some rapport and there's some trust there, you can say, "I'm not the typical, just head down, gonna work all the time and then just, 9 to 5. And I want to start thinking strategically and for the company and here's where I think my strengths are and what I really love. I've got this Venn diagram for the last 6 months, I've been writing everything down. Jake and Aaron and Steve told me to do this and I think it's really great. It's valuable. I want to start pointing it towards something. You don't need to get hugely involved. I don't want to drag you down. You've got tons of work. In fact, I can do some things for you to take off your plate. If I can get maybe another hour with you to kind of discuss it, don't make it something that they'll perceive as oh, this new project and it's going to be heavily involved and I've got to go through all this red tape because they've got their aspirations. They've got all the stuff on their plate that they're dealing with. So I want to hit that one hard. That's a good strategy and it's something to really think about. Don't put it all in someone else's hands and say, "I think it'd be a great," and then sit back and wait for them to implement it. You need to be proactive and implement it yourself because nobody cares about what you're saying as much as you do, or about the outcome as much as you do. So you have to produce it for yourself. And then, go ahead. I'll make one point after.
What you're saying brought to mind this great analogy I heard a long time ago about a wood fire stove and generating heat. And if we say that the heat is the result that you want at the end of whatever this initiative is, right? Maybe it's a pay raise, maybe it's more responsibility at work, whatever it is, that heat doesn't come until you put the fuel in, right? You need to stoke it with wood before you get that heat out. And the wood is you being proactive, you putting effort into something. Every now and then someone approaches me at work and says, "Hey, I need a raise. I deserve a raise." And I said, "I'm glad that you feel that way. Tell me why. What are you doing to earn this raise, to deserve it?" And sometimes there are legitimate reasons for it, right? And other times there aren't. And I'll say, I can't just give you more money. If you want more money, you need to add more value. You need to be a greater contributor to the company. So what wood are you going to put in to create this fire?
Yeah. How do we make it such that it's a no-brainer to give you this raise?
Exactly. I would love to give you a raise. There has to be a reason for it.
Right. And then you can help them along that way, but they got to put in the work.
Yeah.
The last point I was going to make was that I always like to clarify things. So we're talking about this stuff, okay, and go down that rabbit hole and think about it, reflect and all that. But we're not saying as a young engineer that you should let all of this distract you from executing, doing a damn good job and producing, right? In the beginning of your career, you're gonna have to work hard. And we all continue to work hard, but what I mean is do a lot of tasks. Maybe not know how to do everything. You're going to be putting in research time. You're going to be just trying to stay. It depends on what company you're in. If you're in a sink or swim company, if you're in one with tons of training and an onboarding process that's just gold, or if you're somewhere in the middle, But you need to put in a lot of work and keep your head down and be producing. We're just inviting you to consider these things. I just don't want to I don't want it to derail somebody and have somebody think that, oh, I should be spending 80% of my time doing the things they're talking about. No, there's still that factor of like, people need you to get stuff done, and a lot of it. So, keep the focus, but every once in a while, consider these things and put a plan in to work on these things over the months, because it'll get away from you and you'll be, a year in, and it's annual review time, and you've put no thought other than just like, I'm doing all the stuff in front of me in a serial fashion. So I think that's kind of what we're getting at.
Balance is important.
Yes, very much so. We've talked about how do you determine, you're a new or younger engineer, or maybe you're even 6 years, 7 years, 8 years in, you can start doing more of this stuff, but let's just focus on early career. So you're working hard, you are taking some time to reflect and grow. You're thinking about what we've talked about. Maybe you put some time in outside of work, right? Some personal development time in to try and supplement your professional career, because they go hand in hand. You're figuring out your purpose as you're building those buckets of your why, and you're figuring all this stuff out. When I would just pose the question to all of us, at what point is it time to do like a career map? Like, I don't want people to get ahead of themselves and like, and say, there's no way you can know. Like, yeah, I'm on track to CEO. Like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to spend the next 30 years doing it. And here's the path. Like, I don't know of anybody that can do that right away. Steve, we've talked about like two major groups before, like in engineering, like SME, like a subject matter expert, and then like the people side and the management, and then up into leadership, right? And then there's mixing of the two along the way, but eventually there's kind of this split into leadership, I would say, which has components of being a technical expert and stuff like that, but sometimes it gets left behind. And then there's this path to like pure subject matter expert. It's just kind of like you just answering questions that are really hard, and then you set other people on to go figure out the rest of it, but you got them past that really hard part. I don't know if it's years. I don't know if it's a feeling. When does that start? When do you start mapping it out?
I think my initial thought is, you want to learn how to be effective in your current role in the organization that you're in first, before you really start thinking about, okay, I want to be a manager right now, or I want to be, the master subject matter expert instantly. It's because you want to be very effective in the baseline tools, processes, et cetera, in the organization. And then you'll start to feel the pull in one way or the other. So like for the organization that I'm in right now, engineers come in at level 1, and then you have level 2, and then you go to like a senior engineer. And then after that, that's kind of when they're very effective in their role at what they do, because they're a product engineer. And then now the split starts to form, right? There's a couple paths that are parallel, and you can kind of go back and forth, and then it starts to really branch out. And so that's usually 3 to 5 years or so, just if you want to put a timeline on, but I don't think you should. Sometimes it is faster, sometimes it's longer. But yeah, that's kind of my initial thought.
I think it's going to be a big thing on people's minds as they figure all this stuff out. Mm-hmm. Aaron, do you have any thoughts on this? I mean, I know you kind of like laid off after 3 or 4 years and then just started your own company, and it was great. But
yeah, I feel like a total imposter answering this, because when I was a senior in high school, sitting around the dinner table one night, my dad says to me, "What are you going to do in college?" And I said, "I don't know. I haven't really thought about it." And he says, "You should consider engineering." And I said, "Great, that sounds good." And so I was very unintentional about my path to becoming an engineer. Now, luckily, my dad knows me very well, and engineering turned out to be a great fit, but I did not give it much thought at all. I just went into it because my dad suggested it, and it turned out to be a great fit. Now, if I had it to do over again, I would probably start planning as soon as I could. In college, I would probably go out and start looking for people in industry. I would get a LinkedIn account, and I would be semi-active on LinkedIn enough to start generating a little bit of a network. I would look for segments of the industry, whether it's medical device development or aerospace or whatever, and find people there who could be mentors to me, and then just start getting to know them. Go out to lunch with them, and you'll find that when your intent genuinely is just to seek help and advice from people, people are very willing to share their time with you. As long as you're not trying to sell them something, people are very willing to share their time and advice and feedback. So it's probably the approach I would take.
What about you, Jake?
Well, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, I just, it was like, hey, engineering pays well, and maybe we should do that. And I'm like, okay, and my best friend did it, and I was like, yeah, let's follow him to college. I didn't put very much thought into it either.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as like planning, so Steve, you're the planner. I know this. Aaron, it seems like you just take action, which is kind of what I do. So I recommend a mix of both of those. So I firmly believe that if you are to figure out where you want to go, and specifically if you're looking to map your career out at a company, you must pull all threads and know as much as you can along the way. It will inform your purpose. It will inform you of where you need to go. Like if you make a plan to go SME and just be a subject matter expert, and that's all you focus on, you're going to become that. Right? Now, there's a difference between just like, I'm going to become this, and then I'm really good at it, and then I love it, and then everything's great. Between, okay, in general, I'm heading towards this direction. I'm going to start networking, asking for advice, helping people, getting mentors, learning about everything that could influence that path along the way, so that you don't just run into something where it's like, oh, well, I didn't know this was a part of it. And I really don't like this part of it. And so much so that if I did know about this before, I probably would have like taken some time to think about maybe changing trajectory a little bit or creating my own position like we talked about earlier. So I recommend having a plan and then destroying the plan and then redoing the plan and then talking to people and then maybe taking a fork in the road. And I like the discovery through doing and pulling all threads. So that's what I would recommend. And I think if there was a theme to this episode, it's that for younger engineers, you can just be working for like years thinking that I've had people tell me this. Well, I'm the bottom of the totem pole. I'm expected to just work and shut up. And I don't get to say when I want to take my vacations, or if I plan something and then something else comes up, I'm the lowest. Like, I just have to do it and keep my head down and keep working. I don't get to go to that networking event. I don't get to go to that meeting or spend this day out doing something. I need to be working. And I've heard that a lot. And sometimes for myself early in my career, I think that just is a huge disservice to yourself and eventually to the company and how well you can produce and where your impact is pointed. So this is for the engineer that's just like, I'm just going to work, head down. Might not even be listening to this podcast. So if because they're working, right? If you've got a buddy that is like that, share the show with them. If they trust you enough and get them to listen, that's where I want to message this podcast episode. It's like, please remember to come up for some air every once in a while, and do these things. It's going to help you tremendously, because you can get 20 years down the road and you look back and you're like, oh man, did nothing but work my ass off. Never asked for, hey, is there potential to do this path or make this more money or have this position or be able to do these things? And what action should I be taking to be able to get there instead of just working? That's very personal to me too, Steve. It's like, we saw Dad it's just work, just endlessly work, not really think about the trajectory or if it could be different or better. It was just work. And so that's where I'm coming from. I don't know if that speaks to anything, but
yeah, no, I think you're spot on. And in fact, coming up for air, these are one of the things that gives me energy. Sometimes if I'm just, head down, work, I'll burn out eventually. And I've realized that I need to take breaks and just come up for air and think high level. And that really gives me enough energy to then go back and put my head back down and continue grinding away.
Yeah. And I did that just recently, Steve. So when I started NLS, I was like, okay, it's all on me. I'm quitting a nice job. The money goes away. I need to start making money. And I just was like literally 85 hours just working still full time, and then just every other spare time was NLS reach outs and emails and connecting with people. And then I got like sick for like a month straight.
Oh.
It was clearly a message like, hey, this is not a good long-term strategy. So I had to be reminded, and this was recent, I had to be reminded again, right? So even I fall into that trap.
Yeah, we all do.
Like, hey, you got to take a break, man, or do something that recharges you. So, all right. Hey, we're coming up on time. We've got our questions, Aaron. I hope I won't be ready to give us something good here.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
He's ready. So, Steve, you want to ask yours first?
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
Mine's real high level, and I know you like to think high level. So, really, it's what does it mean to you to be an impactful engineer?
I think it all comes back to purpose, like we talked about earlier. If you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, you're probably not going to be very impactful. But if you have a strong purpose, a strong why, you understand yourself well enough to know what motivates you and what drives you, that's ultimately going to be what allows you to be impactful as an engineer, as a parent, as a sibling, as a human being. So for me, it all comes back to the high level why. I'll stop there. Purpose, why.
Yeah, and that's perfect. And it totally ties into, the first half of this episode. So if you're listening to this and you need to figure out what is your purpose, just replay this and you'll find the instructions.
And I'll do something a little different here before I ask my question, because I messed it up. And before we got into our questions, what I wanted to do was give you like a spot. Like if there's anything that you didn't talk about that you wanted to share, also, what are you working on? What's coming up for you? Where people can find you? All that good stuff. I want to lay that out for anyone who's listening that's interested.
I've been really interested probably the past 5 years in helping engineers engineer more productively. Productivity is something that I have based my identity on, for better or for worse. I'm not sure yet, but part of my identity is based on being productive. In fact, core value number 2 here at Pipeline is governed by productivity, not bureaucracy. Love it. When I can help another engineer, particularly, be more productive in his or her role, that really fills me with joy. I love that. And so we've done a variety of things to try and help engineers be more productive. We have our own podcast, the Being an Engineer podcast. There's The Wave. It's an online community for engineers, thewave.engineer. And there are all sorts of cool things on The Wave. You can connect with mentors. These are senior engineers who've been around for a long time and are willing and interested in mentoring younger engineers. There are some pretty neat CAD downloads. These are actual working mechanisms that you could drop into one of your assemblies. Most of them come with like drawings, manufacturing ready. So it's not grab CAD type stuff where a student created it and it looks like the thing, but you would never use these files to manufacture anything. These are like ready to manufacture stuff. There are articles, there are forums, you can put a portfolio up there, a multimedia portfolio, pictures and videos that you can use to share with, potential employers in the future. So that's thewave.engineer. And then we, most recently, we're creating an event called PDX, the Product Development Expo. And this is a 2-day in-person event here in Phoenix. Of course, we're inviting anyone anywhere to come. You don't have to live in Phoenix, but a little bit of travel involved there. And it's a training boot camp. And so we've got dozens of subject matter experts who are going to be providing training on different topics that are relevant to engineers. For example, how to program a robot, or DFM for plastic injection molding, or GD&T, metrology, practical project management, scanning and reverse engineering, right? Just the plating and finishing techniques, all of these different topics that are relevant for engineers developing physical products, primarily focused on kind of the mechanical end of things, not so much the software or electrical. Mm-hmm. And yeah, those are the things that I'd like to share. Thank you for giving me a spot to do that.
The wave.engineer, you should be going there.
Where that sounds
else can
awesome.
You just get a pool of senior engineers that want to help out?
Right.
I'm guessing product focused or manufacturing or.
Yeah, primarily focused on the like physical goods, hard goods, engineering development space.
Yeah. And this expo is in Arizona, in what town?
It's just outside of Phoenix, a town called Mesa. There's a Mesa Convention Center is where it's being held. We've rented out the entire convention center. It's a great spot, great space. It'll be in October 21st and 22nd, and weather will be nice here. We're going to have kind of an after hours event as well, just to have fun and network a little bit. And you can go to pdexpo.engineer to learn more about that, pdexpo.engineer.
And it's, if you know of an engineer or a friend or just an acquaintance that's near that town or, outside of Phoenix, Arizona, it's really simple to just click the little thing on the episode and say share, and then just type in the name. Let them know that it's something nearby that's very helpful, and that just to reach out at least, and that it's sharing this is going to be what's going to drive a lot of the value of creating this episode. That's the only way that podcast episodes are I guess spread, really. I mean, there's no other way, right? You've got to do it.
I worked in Phoenix as an engineer for 6 years, so I'll be sharing this.
Yeah,
to
Steve, you better be sharing this.
all my contacts.
Thank you so much.
Very good. All right. Wow, you do a lot for the engineering community. I mean, dang. Talk about being an impactful engineer. So, I guess my question is purely action. Like, can someone start doing something today when they turn off this episode, whatever they're doing? What can they just start doing?
I have two answers to this question. The first is find a mentor. We talked about the wave. This was not my agenda of sharing the wave. But find a mentor. A mentor is going to help you accelerate your progress, your career as an engineer. A mentor or a coach. Generally, mentors are a little less formal, probably not like a paid engagement, whereas a coach might be more of a paid, formal engagement. But find people who know more than you do and develop relationships with them and learn from them. So that's one thing. Find a mentor. And then the other thing is there's this program. I feel like an old man calling it a program, but there's this program I listened to a long time ago called Lead the Field by a gentleman named Earl Nightingale. And it is one of the best compilations of just foundational wisdom for life and business that I've ever found. I've probably listened to it a dozen times or more at this point, and I still learn something new and impactful from it when I listen to it. So Earl Nightingale, Lead the Field. You can find it on Amazon or probably plenty of other, maybe it's on Audible as well. Just get the audio version of it and listen to it in the car when you're going to and from work. But it's a phenomenal combination of information and wisdom that has really been helpful for me.
I've heard a lot of random Earl Nightingale stuff. I love that stuff.
Yeah, that guy is awesome.
It's mindset, life stuff that just goes, wow, you get to think this way.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then just go do it. If you want to be a real OG, you can buy some tapes and get yourself a tape deck.
Totally. Yep. In fact, Earl he's long since dead now, but he was old enough. There might be some 8-tracks floating around out there.
There you go. Amazing. Steve, you got anything to close us out with?
No, just the normal closing statements. Before I get to that, is there any final thoughts from you, Aaron, that you wanted to shoot in here before we close out?
I think I've got out everything that I wanted to say. So thank you guys again for having me on the show and giving me a platform to rant a little bit and share all the random thoughts that go on inside my brain.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure to have you on. And once more, what is your podcast so people can jump over there as well?
Thank you. It's the Being an Engineer podcast, and it's on all the major podcast platforms.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. And if you're listening to this, go over there and listen to all the awesome and amazing episodes over there as well. And if you learned something today or know someone needs to hear this episode, and I know you know someone, please share this episode specifically. You don't even have to share the link. You could just say, hey, go listen to Impactful Engineer. The latest episode that came out, It is awesome. It's the best way that we can grow the podcast and continue to create value and impact for the engineering community.